Right, good afternoon or good evening, depending on when you're watching today's video. Thanks for clicking on to the midweek edition of Vogan's European Outlook. We continue to see Arctic Air, early season Arctic Air driving south over the UK and Ireland. We've got this nice little curl just to the east of the Northern Isles, representative of a mid-970s millibar low pressure system. But you can see here this air mass satellite imagery shows the cold air that is getting drafted in from Greenland, from Iceland, from the Arctic down into the British Isles, and we've had some very stiff winds blowing on the western flank of that low pressure system that has been driving the cold air south. And you can see the temperature difference between late yesterday afternoon and today. This was back at 10 to 4 UTC yesterday afternoon. Cool conditions was already entering the northern UK, very mild from the central belt southwards, especially across the further south you went, 17s and 18s quite widely. Play through the animation, and you can see the change that took place during the course of the overnight period. We've seen some low single figures in a few sheltered spots across the south of England, even last night. And then as we progress through the afternoon today, we've seen temperatures just peg back slightly. Still relatively mild conditions across the far south. That cold front not quite reaching the south coast just yet. But all the while we are seeing the temperatures coming down the further north you go. In the September sunshine, by the way, when the winds drop off relatively light, actually not too bad. Even here at the house, 13.5 Celsius this afternoon. Bear in mind I'm north of Inverness. Temperatures responded actually not too bad. I was actually slightly surprised it got to 13.5, but it just shows you the strength of the sun. And despite the fact that we've got this Arctic air mass in place and moving southwards, there is still quite a bit of power in the sun, but also water temperatures are much warmer than they were back at the end of spring, for example. So this air mass tends to be a little bit more moderated moving south compared to what it would have been back, say, at the end of May or even early June. There was daytime maximums, multiple days stuck in single figures during the month of June. The air mass that we had back in June was more potent than the air mass that we're having now, just simply because we've went through the summer. SSTs have warmed up surrounding the UK, and this air mass just has that little bit harder work to kind of bring down those maximum temperatures. Is essentially what I'm getting at. Is it's easier to get daytime maximums 8, 9, 10 Celsius during the early portions of the summer as opposed to early autumn, just given the overall circumstance. And I think that the atmosphere tends to have just that little bit more heat involved as well. But you can see here the showers rattling in on that northerly flow. And we've actually got some lightning being detected also, which is quite interesting. Not really a big surprise, if I'm being honest. But as that frontal system moves south into slightly milder conditions, we are seeing some electricity being produced within the atmosphere, as well as that colder drives south over relatively warm waters. You get that enhanced instability within the atmosphere, and lightning can take place. So we're seeing it across parts of the Leeds area, just to the east of Hull, off the Lincolnshire coast here, off Norfolk. We've got it just to the southeast of the Wash. Got a few lightning getting detected just to the west of London here, to the south of London, plenty out over the North Sea and over the near continent here. If we look at the latest chart here, the surface pressure chart of the Met Office, there's that frontal system digging south, 976 millibar low, edging ever closer to Norway here. And that, if you follow the lines of equal pressure, the isobars here, we've got our winds extending all the way up into the Arctic region here. So you can see here, if we look at also this chart, looking at the 850 anomaly here. So this is a relatively impressive early season Arctic outbreak. You typically don't see this until later in October and November, this kind of intensity of air mass coming south. And we are going to look in the next few days, by the way, at the what's going on, the weird things that are going on within the stratosphere over the North Pole. The polar vortex expected to be potentially record weak during the month of September, even in October. We've also got the MJO expected to rotate into what would be more favourable phases for cold. I'm not going to say any more than that. We're going to look at that probably in tomorrow's video, so stay tuned for that. And if you haven't already done so, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. So by subscribing to the channel, you don't miss any future content here. We are going to be talking more and more about winter, looking at the big picture as to why we see the swings that we're having. The SOI, I think, has a lot to do with the Arctic outbreak that we're seeing at the moment. But look at this here. This is a very impressive anomaly. So this is the 5,000 foot level anomalies in terms of temperature. You can see here 8s and 9s below average, sinking south over the UK into the heart of Western Europe here. All the while, as that Arctic air plunges south over Western Europe, we're seeing heat get lifted north over the eastern side of Europe. Essentially, this is what happens. You get one air mass coming down, you get another air mass going up downstream of that in response to that southward plunge of Arctic air. But you can see here -8 below average, even -10 Celsius below average. This air mass is mighty impressive given what we've seen at the end of last week. We had 10 above average. We had temperatures in Austria 32 Celsius. By the time we get to the late week, we're going to be struggling to get to 8 or 9 Celsius. That is a huge jump in terms of, or drop should I say, in terms of temperature. Big extremes going on over Europe at this moment in time. And if we look at the European temperatures currently, you can see that we are starting to see that colder air getting driven south over France into the near continent here. Still hot across central and southern Spain, if you notice here, but we're starting to chip away at that heat even across south and eastern areas. All the while, we're talking about temperatures as high as 22 Celsius in Arctic Norway at the moment. Bear in mind the time of the day as well. We're getting ever closer to the middle evening here, and therefore, that 22 Celsius on the 11th of September in the evening is pretty darn impressive. But it's as that air dives south, the warmth has to come north downstream, and that is exactly what we are seeing taking place. Wanted to show you this image here from my Facebook fan page. So if you're on Facebook and you're interested in all things weather, do give us a follow. This was Ben Wyvis, literally just behind where I live here. So this has been captured from the Cromarty Firth, overlooking Ben Wyvis, which is about maybe 3,500 feet above sea level. Fresh snow this morning, and I think that's been a big talking point here locally today, is the fresh snow on Ben Wyvis. Probably the earliest covering of snow in a few years, I would imagine. I'm not entirely sure about that. This was also the scene on top of Cairngorm back earlier this morning here. Elevation 1,097 meters above sea level. And the live current view, you can see here, cloud rolling in. There's the remnants of the snow earlier on today. Bear in mind, it was 17.6 on Friday afternoon, so what a drop this is. Okay, so I also wanted to look at precipitation here, because total accumulated precipitation seen by the ECMWF, you can actually see quite nicely moisture associated with that low between Shetland and Norway. We're seeing the showers running that northerly flow here with some lightning detected in that as well. And it's basically along the cold front, which separates the milder with the colder air. We're seeing the outbreaks of rain and precipitation. But it's once we move later on this week that I think we could have a potentially major flood situation unfolding across the southeast of Europe here, as that cold air meets the warm, humid air over the southeastern half of Europe. Bear in mind how warm the Mediterranean is. This could be a major situation developing here over parts of eastern and southeastern Europe. Now, this is total accumulated precipitation as we progress into Friday. Look at this here, this bullseye over eastern Czech Republic, parts of Slovakia, southwestern Poland, and we're already talking about upwards of 200 plus millimeters of rainfall. And as we continue to play through this loop here, it looks as if the system develops here, frontal boundary becomes stuck, and we could see some massive amounts of rain falling over this region between now and the early portions of next week. Look at these rainfall totals. By the time we reach the end of next week, there is upwards of 497 millimeters of rainfall in this region here. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on this as the Arctic air drives southeast, meeting the warm humid air in combination with a developing low over very, very warm Mediterranean waters. This could be a potentially a very, very dangerous situation with regards to flooding. You also notice here that the western side of the UK is back in the rain once again, and the reason for that is quite straightforward, and it's been alluded to here a few times already. Watch this situation change as we go towards the middle and second half of this week. We're in the middle of the week, towards the second half of the week. I mean, you see the northerly flow here. Then as we move into later tomorrow into Friday, we'll start to space out the isobars. A little bit of a bump in the pressure field here as high pressure builds in, setting the scene for a potentially quite a cold night coming up Thursday into Friday. And then you notice the change taking place here. We're starting to essentially recast the atmosphere. This high then builds in, but then sinks a little bit further south, allowing the jet stream to become more amplified and more active, should I say, not amplified, but more active over the Atlantic basin. We're going to see a stronger jet. We're going to see lows developing along that jet. And essentially what we're going to see is areas of low pressure moving towards Iceland. As they do so, frontal systems associated with those lows are going to bring wet and windy conditions to the north and west of the UK in particular. So a very different picture by the time we reach the early portions of the weekend compared to what we have now. We shut the Arctic door and we return the southwesterly flow of subtropical air. So that is going to be the script as we move towards the weekend coming up here, and we will recover in temperatures compared to what we've got at the moment here. I want to quickly finish off by trying to show you here the, if I can find what I'm looking for. I want to show you this here, temperatures over the next few nights in particular. This is the GFS here, and let me just see here. Total cloud cover first of all. Let's have a look at this. Look at the UK view. Bear with a second. Also, by the way, just released the tropical outlook, looking specifically at Hurricane Francis. It looks as if it's going to make a landfall in Louisiana over the next few days. Do check that out. There is plenty of information on there with regards to Hurricane Francis, so do check that out. But yeah, let's play through this loop here. This is total cloud cover. I've got the northerly flow at the moment. Notice here it's sunnier the further south you go. Further north, you've got the more convective clouds to speak about. Then that high builds in, and with clear skies and light winds, we are going to see the temperatures dropping off quite a bit, I think. This is the 2 meter temperature anomalies. Not anomalies, but actual temperatures themselves. Just bear with me a second here. So this would be early Friday morning. Let's go back to tonight and see what it is indicating here. And then we'll finish at that. So I think this is during the course of this afternoon. Then tonight, with a little bit of wind, the temperatures will stay up slightly. We've got a little bit of mixing going on, but we are in some sheltered spots going to see the temperatures drop off close to the freezing mark. A few sheltered glens will definitely get close to freezing. But these are the overnight temperatures tomorrow night and into early Friday. With those clear skies and light winds, it's going to get pretty cold. Wouldn't be surprised if we see -3 somewhere within the sheltered Highland Glens tomorrow evening. So we'll stay tuned for that here and see just how cold it gets. That is it for today. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all being well tomorrow, where we will talk about polar vortex and the possibility of something colder in a few weeks' time. Bye for now.